Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the H Panel, the show where I bring on guests from all different backgrounds to talk all the things mental health. I'm of course your host Harry Potvin, and today I have the pleasure of being joined by Dr. Friedemann Schaub. For Dr. Friedemann, I had to pull out the list for you guys because he's just such an accomplished individual. He's an award-winning best-selling author, he's the host of Empowerment Radio, he's a master practitioner in NLP, clinical hypnotherapy, and timeline therapy, and he's got an MD specializing in cardiology and a PhD in molecular biology. It was such a pleasure to get to talk to Dr. Friedemann for a couple minutes, so I want to thank him again for coming on and having this discussion with me. Also, I wanted to address a little slip up that I had last episode. In Thursday's episode with Rachel, I said today is Sunday. It was not. Today is Sunday. So shout out to the pandemic for making me completely forget what day it is. Now, before we get into our ad, courtesy of yourmd.ca, please, if you're listening to this, like, comment, share, subscribe, give 5 stars if you're on a podcast platform, share with someone who might need to hear this episode. It is a really great one, and I can't wait for you all to listen. I hope you all have a great day, and I'll talk to you very soon. Peace. So before we get into the interview with Dr. Schaub here, I am joined by Sean Kanungo from YourMD. Sean, what's going on, man?
Harry, I'm so excited to be on this pod again. We have a great episode with Dr. Schaub, and he writes about fear and anxiety and, part of Empowerment Radio. This person is, Dr. Schaub is probably one of the most accomplished guys that I've seen. I mean, you just look at his resume. So I'm excited to get into it. And I don't know, Harry, what are you most excited about in terms of this pod? Because he's going to go into the pandemic and, how it could have been a good thing, maybe a bad thing. What are you most excited about?
Man, the thing that I am most excited about this one is he actually kind of psychoanalyzes me. I've had a couple guests that have done that, and I'm all for it. I mean, I remember I came out of this podcast. It's a shorter one. It's like 35 minutes. But I remember I came out and I told my mom, I was like, I feel like way more enlightened because he targeted stuff that I had gone through. And I was like, that makes a lot of sense. So I'm hoping that people listening actually like get some, input about their own lives. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, I hope they at least appreciate that I got psychoanalyzed again.
Hey, well, listen, at least this is what you're doing on every podcast. You're getting psychoanalyzed. And I think it's great. You're getting like a free therapy session, Carrie. Just take it, man. I think it's great. And by the way, on that note, I'm from a company here in Canada called yourmd.ca. We are connecting individuals across Canada to unbelievable physicians. And you don't have to step into a doctor's office. It's all through our technology, through a telemedicine platform. Things like we're helping guys that are thinning, where their hairs are thinning, or helping them connect with physicians so that they can get the right medications for whatever they need. And we've been proud to help a whole bunch of folks with their ailments, whether it's hair loss or other ailments. So check us out at yourmd.ca. You can check us out there, and just really excited about this episode and really excited about sponsoring your pod. I think you're doing such a great job at elevating the conversation around mental health in this country and beyond. And just proud to do that.
Love it, man. Yeah, you guys already know I'll put that link in the description down below if you've been here. And please enjoy this episode. I'm Harry Potvin, and this is the H Panel. We're live. Dr. Schaub, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Before we get into your work, I wanted to get to know you a little better. So what got you inspired to get into this line of work, studying fear and anxiety, and kind of brushing away from your original work in Western medicine?
Yeah, I think it started early in my life that I had anxiety and was struggling with it myself and didn't really get a lot of help. I think my mom gave me sometimes some sleeping pills so that I could sleep before a test, or I took a cat in bed that helped too at times when you're too nervous. But it really got worse. It went even to the degree that I had OCD and thought like I can prevent bad things from happening when I straighten carpets and stuff like that. So it wasn't really fun. I wouldn't say I outgrew it, but somehow I learned to live with it, and some of the symptoms went away. But when I was in cardiology, that was my specialty, I just realized how many people are anxious and how much anxiety has an impact on our health, not only mental health, but also physical health, and that there is really not a lot of help out there. Yes, we are going and taking some medication, or maybe people do actually take the harder route to do some therapy, but I just felt like somehow there is something missing in the way we are treating anxiety, because we are treating it as a disease and not really something that's natural inside of us, and maybe something that just needs a little bit of a different attention than we are giving it. Because most people that treat or deal with fear and anxiety, they're fighting it. It's like, I want to get rid of it, and they're not necessarily at least curious about it, or maybe even embracing it. So after I did a detour into research and studied some molecular biology, I decided my place is really to help people with their fear and anxiety, and with their, in general, their emotions, and coming more from the subconscious angle rather than trying to rationalize our feelings. And I chose the subconscious because that's where our feelings come from. Our feelings are not rational. Most of us would love to, reason ourselves out of being anxious. Doesn't make sense. Everything is fine. Why am I worried? Well, it doesn't go away this way. So there's something deeper. And so I studied then for years what the subconscious is about, how we can reach it, and how we can work with it to really also address our fears and anxieties. And that's what I'm doing since almost 20 years.
Yeah, the subconscious mind is kind of a hard topic for people to grasp just because it's not physical, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I would say it's really something that is probably the most underestimated resource inside of us. I mean, there are studies that say 80% of what we do is controlled by the subconscious mind. From, pouring coffee in while you're watching TV, or driving to work while you're actually thinking about something completely different. Or, I mean, it happens to me. I wash my hair and I forget whether I did it or not, but somehow did it because it's wet. So what happened? So there is a lot of stuff that subconscious does automatically that we don't really know. It's really a bigger part of our life than the conscious mind. And it's also more powerful than the conscious mind because it's computing things so much more fast than the conscious mind. And I think the subconscious is a big friend inside of us that we're unfortunately continuously ignoring. So in order to really come to our potential, we should look into how to befriend our subconscious.
Is there a way to slow down the subconscious mind so it comes in par with the conscious one?
Well, it's not that the subconscious is too fast. It's just that the subconscious is more, at different times giving us different messages. So, for example, you're talking maybe about mind racing, which is often a subconscious way of conveying certain kind of concerns. And yes, there is a way to slow that down, and almost like, pay attention to what's actually the gist of the racing mind. What happens often though is we try to distract ourselves from it. Let's just watch something on Netflix and they're going to feel better. And the racing mind may be drowned out for a moment, but as soon as it's quiet and you lay in bed, it just comes right back. So there is something that doesn't want to, really be made quiet or silent. You can slow it down if you actually sit down and pay attention. So one simple way is not to avoid those thoughts that come up, even if they're negative, but really just write them down. But don't write them down as statements, as facts. Write them down as questions. Am I really okay? Will I get COVID? Will this ever end? What will I do afterwards? All of those things are questions that need answers. And that's where the conscious mind is really what the subconscious mind needs. If you're thinking about the relationship conscious subconscious, people often compare the relationship between a child and an adult. It's not totally the way I see it, but you could say the child, the subconscious, just wants some answers from the adult conscious. A little reassurance, a little, got that, don't worry about it. And that is something that I found is extremely effective. So in my practice, when I give people just a little bit of those tools, 70 to 80% of mind racing disappears within just a few weeks. It's almost like, oh, I'm getting attention here. And it's quite powerful.
Wow, that's amazing. So, like this idea of being fearful and being anxious, it's kind of viewed in our society as like you're such a baby, or you're worrying too much, just shut up, or like you're bringing that upon yourself, when a lot of the times it's not you choosing to feel that way. And I think people are having a hard time grasping that just because you can't see it, and they just assume that, you know, having one thought in your mind's not going to impact you at all. Is there a way that this actually physically impacts someone, like the fear and anxiety running through your mind all the time?
Well, it does impact you simply by the release of stress hormones. And, stress is kind of the cousin of anxiety, and 70% of doctor visits are stress related illnesses, high blood pressure, cholesterol high, diseases. So it does affect you. I mean, I don't want to scare people that, thinking like, oh my God, my anxiety going to kill me. It's not that, dramatic, but it's certainly something we want to take care of. But it's a really good point that you're raising about, well, a lot of people feel like, well, I can't really do anything about it. I'm not a baby. It's just happening to me. And they're right. I mean, it's not something you choose to have, anxiety. It's something natural we all have. Even the people that pretend they don't, they do have anxiety, and it just comes up because otherwise we would be robots. It's a very normal emotion. For some people, it just comes up stronger and more frequently at different times in different situations. And that has a lot to do with how we are programmed. If you're thinking about us like little operating systems, and our mind, our subconscious mind, just learning early, okay, this is how the world runs. This is how I need to be. This is how I need to behave in order to be okay. And so let's say you grow up in an environment where having, high performance, being really always the A student was incredibly important in order to get a little bit of love and attention from your parents. Maybe because you grew up with 3 other siblings and you had to compete for that. So from that on, you always want to achieve. And then let's say you are in a job where all of a sudden your boss, for some reason, doesn't like you. You don't get the A report card. You don't get the promotion. That brings up so much anxiety inside of you because you associate this with failure, and you're associated with not being worthy of love, and all of those past programmings come right back. Whereas other people say, screw that, I'm just going to look for another job. You may feel like, oh my God, okay, the world is falling apart. I need to work harder. I need to do more. I need to please more. And that is where different people react in different ways. And there were studies that shown in people that had PTSD after wars, when they came back, why do we have some people that are in the same battalion having the same experience, the same horrid images? Why do some people just not really care? They can let it drop off, say, well, that was horrible, but it's not affecting me. I'm glad I'm back home. And others are every night having nightmares. And what they found is that those that have PTSD had a tough upbringing. There's usually something early in their life that already made them primed to not feeling safe, or waiting for the shoe to drop, or any bad things happening. And so that was then reaffirmed in whatever happened there at the front or in the war zone. And that's why they are stuck in that. That's the subconscious making them feel like, well, I knew the world wasn't safe, and now we have to really either watch out or hide out, and whatever reactions we have to PTSD. So yeah, it's definitely something that starts early.
It's so hard to like even understand it too, because the point you just said, where like soldiers varied on their reactions towards certain things, it's like, how do you pinpoint like solutions or triggers when everyone's so different?
Yes and no. Thank you for asking this, because we are different. All of us want to be individuals, but for some reasons we are choosing to go similar survival patterns. And survival patterns are patterns that, early we don't have really a lot of possibilities to, let's say, make it through. So you have the possibility to either hide out and be invisible. So these are the ones that are just, being in their room, reading books, going into the little fantasy world, but are afraid of being bullied or, chastised or something. Then there are those that are pleasing and really trying just to make sure they are always loved, the whatever, peacemakers, achievers. And then there are those that are the controllers, the ones that are just, through maybe anger, temper tantrum, manipulation, trying to control the situation. There are different facets from this, but you could say that most people are falling in those categories. And when you understand, okay, what was your role in your family and what was your belief underneath that role? I'm not safe. If I am speaking up, I get into trouble. If I don't have an A, I'm not loved. If I'm not pleasing, I'm not worthy. If I'm not controlling, no one can be trusted. So all of those things are limiting beliefs that are running our life. And sometimes they are running perfectly well until we are hitting some road bumps. Something happens. We get dumped in a relationship, or, we fall ill, or we're dealing with COVID, and those survival patterns get reactivated. Those beliefs get back in the forefront of our mind. And so our job is to understand then, what do we need to do to heal the root where this all came from, because that's still something that's working inside of us. And what do we need to change beliefs? Now, you, for example, you chose in COVID to not say, this is horrible, I'm stuck here, I don't know what to do, the walls are falling in on me, and just going into this really resistance. And maybe you do, as soon as the microphone is off, you're maybe hitting a pillow. But in general, you said, okay, I'm just gonna help other people with their emotional, mental issues and do that. And that gives you a sense of purpose. And that is a choice. And maybe there is a part inside of you that likes to take care of others. And you have a belief of wanting to make a difference. And so that belief helps you right now to go through these difficult situations. But then there are others that already feel that they are outsiders. And now they are locked in and they are really struggling. They struggle with being alone. They struggle with not knowing what to do with themselves. They don't really like themselves. And so they have a much harder time. And again, this may come from way back. And so COVID is a great incubation chamber to face ourselves. We are all basically not distracted because we don't work as much, we don't go out as much, we don't have any, social interaction, or not as much as usual. So we have to face ourselves. And that facing ourselves is a challenge. It's a problem, but it's also a great opportunity. You can really find out more about, do I really like myself? Do I even know myself? And how can I change that? And that's, I think, something that a lot of people have tried. And maybe you have also found out about yourself things that you didn't know before.
Yeah. Oh man, when I started figuring myself out, I remember all the distractions went away and I was like, I really don't like the person I am at all.
I hope that changed.
Yeah, no, I do enjoy myself now. I'm able to be alone. I definitely was, it was confusing because I was definitely that guy growing up who was a people pleaser. Like I wanted other people around me to be happy because I was like, as long as they're happy, I should be happy too. But then also I had a plan in my head subconsciously of how my life was supposed to go.
Ah,
So it felt like I wanted to be in control, but I also wanted to people please, if that makes sense.
totally. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's usually the chameleon, someone who actually can easily fit into others and know what they want, and, also go along the tracks that, he thinks are the right ones in order to get more approval, more appreciation. So that's where things are, unfortunately, also not really driven by joy or purpose or any kind of, sense of, oh, that's really who I am, but more like an idea of that's what I'm supposed to be or supposed to be doing. And but this liking yourself more, I don't know about your experience, but a lot of people that have anxiety also don't really feel totally comfortable or safe with themselves. But when that turns around, when instead of fighting the anxiety, they actually have compassion for themselves, and they're realizing, well, maybe I just need to really be more open to accept and appreciate who I am. they are not only feeling less anxiety, they're also feeling this for the rest of the world. And it's almost like there is a big shift happening from I have a mental illness, there's something wrong with me, to, oh, I actually have so much more understanding and empathy for myself and others. And the anxiety is much, much less just by making that shift. So it's really what I'm trying to get to people is, don't stigmatize your emotions. Don't tell yourself that you have this disorder or that problem, because it is unfortunately not really the truth. It's not something where, yes, you may struggle. And I'm never really telling people, well, you shouldn't struggle. But it's often a struggle of getting to know and getting closer with yourself, and not just a struggle with some unruly emotions that are trying to make your life hard.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to be terrified of myself. Like cuz I would I'd get really angry. Like I would get to a point where I'd
Mm.
black out and then I'd come back and people would be like, "What is wrong with you?" And I wouldn't know what had happened because I just would completely lose my mind. And so that kind of, for people on the outside looking in, they kind of just labeled me as a hothead and kind of just said he's different, he's weird. And then for me, it made me terrified to be alone and terrified to be with myself. And I guess in a way, I did stigmatize my emotions. I just kind of was like, yeah, they're weird. Don't even acknowledge me because I'm just broken. And that in turn
Yeah.
just kept the cycle going. It was like a dangerous cycle to be on.
Did you understand what the anger was about?
So I do now. There was a period in my life where growing up as a kid, no, obviously, like now more recently we're talking more about mental health and how to handle it and how to deal with emotions, especially as guys, but growing up I never had that. And so the role models I had in my life, because whether it be on the sports teams I was on or my friend groups or people older than me that I looked up to, the only way they'd react to, other than the only way they'd react to like sadness or being in a low point was anger. So when I was on a swim team growing up as a kid, I was like a 10, 9, 8. No, that's not true. 10, 11, 12. And whenever someone would have a bad race or something would happen that they didn't like, they'd punch the lockers and just swear and scream and lose their minds. So growing up I saw that and I was like, that's how you deal with it. I get it now. And then that changed something in my hardwiring where whenever I got upset, I got pissed. And I would start
Hmm.
punching things. I would start losing my mind. And then it just, growing up, I never knew why that was. I just assumed that's just who I was. And then now that I've
Mhm.
started figuring things out, looking back, it makes total sense.
That's a really great story. And you probably had also anxiety, because a lot of people that are, especially guys, that are sensitive, that really take things to heart and are also sensitive to other people, they don't know what to do with their sensitivity. And when that sensitivity becomes overwhelming, they respond like you did, with anger, trying to control the situation or feel more powerful. Now, what happens inside of us that, this is the whole idea about subconscious parts. There is a part of you that feels like, well, I need to be in control. I need to be strong, powerful, loud. And then there's a part of you that feels sensitive and maybe anxious and insecure. And you can literally scare yourself by being this angry guy. So there is this conflict that I see over and over with people, that they are feeling this, like two sides of them. There is a side of them that has a breakout of, trying to dominate. In 5 minutes later, they feel terribly guilty and small and anxious, but those feelings they only feel alone. And then it goes back and forth, and they feel like, well, I must be bipolar, or there must be something really wrong with me, because obviously I am two people and I don't know who I really am. And that is something that is really fascinating to work with, when you are able to communicate and resolve this conflict and communicate with both sides. People feel like for the first time that, oh, finally, I figured myself out. I know now why and how to navigate through life. And they just feel like there's something emerging inside of them that's, they describe as wholeness, a sense of self that they never had before. So that's a really good example of, us just not having the support when we grow up as children to deal with emotions. Girls are allowed to cry, but there's often also not the same support because it's, girls are weak, girls are sensitive, but it's not very empowering message. And boys are not supposed to cry and they are not supposed to show emotions. Terrible message as well. So who actually teaches you anything about feelings? And that's not to blame anyone. It's just there hasn't been really a lot of knowledge out there on what do I do when I feel something and how can this actually be a good thing rather than a bad thing. And yeah, there's a lot still that needs to be done. And now that I'm seeing how many kids are on antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication, it really is such a bad tendency for people to, already put their little ones onto some chemicals. That's I find not a good idea.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. They're so quick to prescribe you because like I took antidepressants as well, but it wasn't until way later. I was always scared of them just because I thought I'd get addicted. But I noticed when would go to therapy, they would prescribe it so quick. Like my first therapy session, and I've talked about this a lot on the podcast, but she came in half an hour late. I was already having a panic attack in there, and she was like, "Here's some meds, good luck." Like she just brushed it off. She was like, "You need these." And there was no other help. And there's so many cases that I've talked to people with where that's the case. Like they just prescribe you right away.
It's terrible because it basically says, I often compare anxiety with pain, physical pain. So you would go to the doctor and you would say, oh, my lower right abdomen, it's really, really hurts. And the doctor would say, here, take a painkiller and go home. Well, you have maybe a burst appendix. So it would be absolutely complete mistreatment to just get this painkiller. And that's the same with the emotions. If you're not even listening to the man or the woman and understanding what's going on and just saying, oh, yeah, well, that's going to take away the edge, I feel this is malpractice. This is not right because we are not just chemicals. We are actually real, beings that have something inside of us that is more than just the biochemical response of our emotions. Our emotions are not created just by little neurotransmitters. Our emotions, I don't think that we really completely understand how they are created, but there are certainly more complex mechanisms at play than just that, which is why when people take antidepressants or anti-anxiety medications, they often feel numbed out. They feel like, I'm not having this anymore, but I'm having nothing anymore. So I'm feeling like, a little bit in some cotton wrapped, and life is just, not really having any depth to it anymore. I don't know if this was the same experience for you, but
Oh yeah, yeah. No, the first antidepressant I was on, I didn't do any research. I just kind of took it because I assumed the happy pill would cure me, and it was just flatline for emotion. Like I had no reaction or emotion to anything. It was
how did that feel?
terrifying. But in the moment, I didn't even think it was scary. I had no feeling. And people would like things would happen, or like I'd go to a swim practice and my coach would tell a hard set. I wouldn't even care. I'd be like it wasn't even like, oh, whatever. It was literally just okay. Like it was just a flat line. I had no reaction. And looking back, it and then I started looking ill. Like it looked like all the blood had flushed from I looked like a zombie, a walking zombie, pretty much. It was
Hmm.
terrifying.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, obviously, antidepressants do work for people. I'm just saying, like, you know, people prescribe them way too early, and definitely, if you're prescribed them, do some research. Because
No, I totally agree. I don't think we should condemn medication because it has saved a lot of people's lives. I just say we shouldn't only rely on them. We should also do more work. So if you take medication and you feel like, well, that's who I am, that's unfortunately my luck in life, well, that's not true. You can actually really find out more if you do therapy or if you're digging a little bit deeper and trust yourself a little bit more. Medication may be right now that really great, I don't know, band-aid, but it's not really healing the deeper wounds that cause you're dealing with. And you may take medication for the rest of your life, but don't make this still something that you identify yourself with. That's always, as a doctor, you quickly give diagnoses, and then there are diagnoses that are hanging on the forehead. Okay, this is who I am, and I'm nothing else but that. And that I think is also very limiting because we are not bound to our illnesses. We are always more than that. We have to just really be willing to look beyond the label.
Yeah, I completely agree. My therapist said it really well. The good therapist. I had like 7 or 8 that were terrible, but the one that did work, she said, because I was terrified to take it, and she was like, "It's only 20% of the recovery. Like, it's not.
Mhm.
You can't depend on it." And like, I'm sure there's some serious cases where you have to, but in most cases, it's just a little part of your recovery. There's so much more that you have to do.
I like that. I like that. And it's work. Unfortunately, we are also a little lazy. We are not necessarily wanting to do the work, and we want to have instant gratification and we want to feel better, and which I all understand. But I think, this whole idea of, well, why me? A lot of people say everyone else is normal, it's just me. Well, that's complete BS, because most people are struggling. They are just not admitting it. So if you're the one who actually says, okay, I have a problem, I want to have help, well, you're actually better off than all those people who don't, because they are still self-medicating. There is no shame in looking for help. It's actually incredibly empowering to do this, because you can only get more and more confidence and self-worth from doing it. So don't postpone it, and don't think that no one is struggling, because that's, especially now, certainly not the case. And you may be surprised how many people that are on paper, all rich and famous and whatever, and how dark and lonely it is inside of them. So we are all human beings, and we are all going through this time of, the planet, which is a challenging time. This is not an easy time. Not even, before COVID, it was difficult already, and just didn't get easier from there. So let's give ourselves a break and find out how we can be the best selves, rather than feeling like, there's something seriously wrong with us.
I completely agree. I know you have to get going soon, but to send us off, I know the pandemic, like you mentioned, was a great incubator for fear and anxiety and getting to really know ourselves, whether that's great or not. Um, so let's say you're in that position where you really don't like who you are, you're kind of fearful of who you are, and maybe you have that duality that we've mentioned before, where one
Mm-hmm.
side of you is scared of the other side. How do we start going about making those two sides coexist?
I mean, read my book. That would be a great start. The Fear and Anxiety Solution. Do a little plug in here, because there is a process that's actually described about how to work with those sides and how to work with the subconscious and all of those kind of things. But the important is not that you are identifying yourself with one or the other side. The important is that you find the middle person. And the middle person is like, I see your picture with your siblings, and you're the older brother. And maybe these younger siblings were fighting sometimes. And then you had to go in the middle and say, hey, okay, let's talk it out. What's going on here? That's the role that you want to claim. There is a middle person that can just calmly listen to, oh, you're feeling out of control. Oh, you're feeling anxious. Let's talk about it. It's literally inner conversations you can have. But in order to be that middle person, you have to ground yourself. And that means, like, well, let's do a little bit of being here and now, whether we call it mindfulness or any kind of form of meditation, whether you're simply looking at yourself with a little bit more positivity. Often I give people the exercise to look back at their life and only write down the things that they did well. And sometimes it's really interesting to see, whoa, I have actually 100 things I did well. And then I ask them, so what made you do those things well? And they say, oh, okay, I'm going to think about it. So then they say, oh, I'm actually pretty smart, or I work really well under pressure, or I always was really creative. So you find resources about yourself that give you a sense of, I am actually a good person and I have a lot that I can rely on. So then you have a much stronger position as a middle person. And then you're going to have these little conversations. And then you can actually figure out, it's okay for me to have different sides that are struggling, as long as one person is really calling the shots. Because let's say, for example, the controlling side says, screw this, the whole pandemic, I'm going to go out and I'm going to, have friends again. And the anxious side, are you crazy? You're going to, get yourself killed, or maybe you're going to kill somebody else. So then there needs to be the middle person who says, what are we going to do? obviously one side feels really locked in. So how can we do a little bit of maybe going outside with a mask and go for a walk or reaching out to friends or something? Obviously, one side is really afraid. So let's make sure that we are really doing all the precautions to make that side also feel okay. So you find compromises. And that inner communication is really, really something that has personally helped me a lot, because I had a side that was a super high achiever and a side that was always afraid of failing or being seen. And you have to navigate with both sides. But, I have changed my career 3 times. I lived at, 3 different countries. I did so many different things that were scaring a part of me. So I had to learn to really listen and then reassure that scared part. And I had to also hold back the part that would have just, done something even more crazy than what I already did. So you have to find a middle ground. And so that's the part where I'm saying, I'm never alone. I have plenty of, sides inside of me that I can talk to. And there's a lot of surprises that happen in this inner communication. And maybe I'm crazy, but I certainly feel much more at peace with myself since I'm doing that.
Yeah. Talking to yourself doesn't make you crazy. To all the
Thank you. I believe that too.
I always am having discussions in my head, like all the time. People, sometimes it'll come out. People are like, "What'd you say?" It's like, no.
Yeah, you try to do it quietly, but I know it's really. What I also find is that one part of us that we need to employ is the inner cheerleader. I have an inner cheerleader that, since 10 years is working for me. I mean, it's fantastic. There's always this little voice, no matter what I do the dishes, there's some clapping happening. I have some animals, I, take care of them. Oh, good job. Before you have breakfast, you take care of them. You're a good person. I mean, it's maybe ridiculous, but I love it because there's always something uplifting happening. And most of us are so hard on themselves. And a lot of, I think, this, anxiety or insecurity or so comes from how hard we are, how judgmental we are, how we are putting ourselves down, and we barely dare to have anything positive to say about ourselves. And let's try that and see how it feels.
Yeah, man, let's do it. I agree. Dr. Schaub, this has been an absolute pleasure. Where can my viewers find you?
drfriedemann.com. So it's drfriedemann.com. I know it's complicated, it's German. drfriedemann.com. And there you can find also on my, your YouTube channel and Instagram and whatever you can find. But go to my website for resources. If you want to know about more what I'm doing and maybe you need help, I offer free consultations. I can talk to you. We can see how to go from there. There are also some just empowerment tools you can download. Lots of stuff to browse around.
Perfect. I will put that link down below. And to all my viewers, I will see you guys next time. Hey guys, thanks for watching another episode of my show. If you want more episodes of the H Panel, the button's going to be right here. If you want to subscribe for more videos from myself, it'll be right down below. Please like, comment, share, give 5 stars. Let's keep this conversation going, guys, all right? I'll see you next time. Thank you for your support.